Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the weekly SuperLobby.com English Premier League podcast. Couple of special guests for you this week. First of all, my usual partner in crime, David Copeland, CEO of SuperLobby.com. How are you, David?
Terrific, Christy. Thanks for having me on.
And better than you, no offense, David, but more important than you this week, we've got Chris Mazzone, the VP of Marketing at Mondogoal. How are you, Chris?
Great, Christy. Nice to make my debut finally. I've been watching you guys for a few weeks now.
Isn't that nice? Someone watches us.
That's lovely.
First things first, Chris, let's talk Mondogoal. It's a really interesting daily fantasy sports option for us non-American players. David and I have actually shot a good few videos using the Mondogoal software. We like it a lot. Take a few seconds to inform our viewers and listeners as to what it's all about.
Yeah, so I actually started in daily fantasy in the US a few years back, stumbled across Mondogoal, and it just made a lot of sense. So our vertical is taking soccer, taking the world's largest sport, and going global with it. Obviously, the Premier League is our bread and butter, where you'll see most of the action, but we branch out to La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1, MLS, Champions League, Europa. We're even adding the Championship soon. So we're just going to be all soccer all the time and kind of grow that vertical.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. And actually, I'm not sure if you caught it, but we did have the winningest player in UK fantasy sports, Alex Haywood, who won a pretty sweet £10,000, what, $17,000 on Mondogoal. Are you familiar with Alex?
Yeah, I talked to Alex a few times. He's been great. He has helped us with our promotions. He loves the site, and it was a perfect winner. He turned a £1 entry into winning our championship last year, which is what you want. You want that person who buys in low, takes a single bullet, and wins the whole thing. And he's been great. He's helped us out a lot, and he's still doing pretty well. So it's good to see him staying out and active in the industry and on the site.
Fantastic. And if you viewers out there haven't actually caught our feature on Alex, then I really recommend you do it. You can find it both on superlobby.com and on our YouTube channel, so check it out. David, I don't like it when you're this quiet. Feel like I should bring you in, so why don't you tell me how you and Chris first crossed paths?
Lurking silently.
So silent, so creepy.
Too silent.
And the picture of you, because you're not on the webcam, you're just still, just poised.
Yeah, well, I'm here. I am here. So I can't remember how I first met Chris. Probably, well, I know how I first met him. I first met him in New York at the FSTA conference in the summertime, but we started speaking last year. I was interested in daily fantasy and obviously soccer, and Mondogoal became the place that I wanted to look into, and Chris became the man. So he was very open, very generous with his time, very helpful in introducing me to some of the nuances of daily fantasy soccer, and for that alone and for many other reasons, he remains in the Hall of Fame at SuperLobby.com.
Wow. And I think, Chris, I might be wrong, no, I'm pretty sure, Chris, you are the very first guest that has had the privilege of both my company and David's.
Wow, that's an honor. And yeah, I met when we Dave and I first started talking. It was really helpful to kind of get his insight on the landscape over there, since it was a new territory for us, and he's been really helpful as well. So I don't want to take all the credit here.
Well, you're obviously important enough to warrant both of our times. So
yeah,
that's saying a lot right there.
And you know what? When we were doing our our pre-shoot emailing back and forth, it came to light through no small amount of bragging that Chris is actually a very profitable daily fantasy sports player himself. Chris, run us through the big score that you've had.
Yeah, it was funny because it was a couple weeks after I had stopped working at DraftKings and moved over to Mondogoal that they launched their Premier League offering. So that was the only place I could have played Fantasy Premier League at the time. and I entered their big contest, and I took home the 10,000 first prize thanks to a Lukaku goal in the final match of the day. So that was pretty exciting. It was fun. It was a fun story for me and all my friends that still work at DraftKings. But I give it back over time. I just enjoy playing. I'm not a pro, that's for sure.
Nice, and that's a pretty sweet little payoff as well. Finish working there and take an extra 10k in the pocket.
Yeah, it was a nice little bonus on the way out the door.
Amazing. So why don't we take a look at this week's picks? Chris, you've had the very dubious honour of making the selections for David and myself, neither of whom are remotely good daily fantasy soccer players, to run the rule over. So you got the short straw. David, why don't you give us, first of all, your little take on the two top picks here?
Okay, well, can I jump even before that? I think this is a great opportunity for Chris. Not putting you in the spot, because I wouldn't expect you to necessarily know them all, because the rules are so different on every daily fantasy soccer site that there's obviously something that in your head when you begin to pick this team. You've gone for a 3-4-3 formation, and the type of players you might be going for. Is there anything you're trying to aim for in picking the team? Is there any a little nice sweet spot in terms of the rules that you were really trying to take advantage of? I think that'd be hugely interesting for our listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and I'll get into them as we kind of discuss each player, because each position's a little bit different for what I was looking at and why I chose who I chose. But I'm looking at it as I want to win the top prize. I play to win that big guaranteed prize pool. I'm not so much looking at a cash lineup, but you'll see a few cash plays mixed in there as well. So I'm trying to find some differentials that are going to be low owned, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're cheap, but they're low owned for various reasons. And we'll mix in a few guys that are going to be highly owned, but you got to have a piece of them, or at least a piece of their team, because they're going to put in some goals. So
sure.
As we go through each player, I can kind of touch on how I came about each individual pick.
Okay, cool. In that case, let's jump on to Kyle Walker and Hugo Lloris, your two Spurs players. What was it about them that you made you pick them?
Yeah, well, we just launched our Tottenham partnership a couple weeks ago. So,
nice plug.
So Kyle Walker, he's among the top 15 in fantasy points scoring for defenders on Mondogoal, and he doesn't have a clean sheet, and he doesn't have a goal. He's getting involved in everything.
Yeah.
And one of the real things I like about him is his fouls drawn to fouls committed ratio. He's drawn 7. He's committed only 1 out of a defender. You don't get that a lot. So you're looking at a couple extra points just for, his ability to draw fouls and get involved in other aspects of the game. If he can sneak a clean sheet, great.
Terrific. Again, they're at home to Everton.
Yeah, exactly.
Who had a hard midweek game. I went 3-0, didn't it? Someone said on Twitter that was Everton's Istanbul.
That is so low.
And with Lloris, it was more just, the price was right. There's a couple guys that were cheaper with Guzan in there, but I don't really trust Villa yet. And Stecklenburg was really, really cheap, but another guy that I just don't really trust. So his price was right. I feel like they can put in a good performance. They've played fairly well defensively. Let's see what we get out of them. It saves me money elsewhere.
Okay, yes, certainly can't blame you on those picks. Both, regular point scorers. Actually, a feature that I really, really like about Mondogoal is that when you actually click on the player, you get the pop-up immediately showing their points versus salary over the mid to long term. So over the last 6 months or so, and Hugo Lloris, a very solid point scorer.
Yeah. Quick question here: are we looking at the fixtures? That was obviously the late game on Saturday in the UK, the 5:30 late game.
Yeah.
Are we looking at is this competition? Sorry, these picks based upon all the Saturday fixtures,
We've got nine fixtures, no less.
So we've eliminated the Arsenal-Newcastle game, and that's strictly to kind of get more team news out there when people are building their lineups, give them a better chance to field a team that they're confident all 11 are going to start, and give people more time to enter.
Okay, so that's the early game we're missing on Saturday, and we're taking in all other games on Saturday and the Sunday games?
And the Sunday
Correct.
Games, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
And that's actually I'm really not wanting to wail on DraftKings here, but that is something that has been a big bone of contention of David's and mine recently. There's been there's only been 4 or 5 fixtures to pick from on Saturday at 3 p.m. So it's not made for particularly interesting selections.
Yeah, we've seen that as well. I think everyone's still trying to figure out the best kind of slate of matches. We offer a lot because it's what we do. We are all soccer all the time. I think we noticed that the player percentages over at DraftKings do get very highly owned with the smaller slates and the salaries the way they are, but they're going to continue to tweak that. I've talked to the guys over there as well. So we're all still trying to figure out the best way to approach soccer. I think we've got a good handle on it, and we'll continue to kind of do it this way for now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty impressive strategy. So across the defence, you've also gone for Kompany, Man City, and Francis at Bournemouth. What's your reasoning behind these picks?
Yeah, I mean, Kompany's pretty much a no-brainer. City are playing great. They're shutting people out, and he's scoring goals.
For a huge brainer. I mean, have you seen the size of his cranium?
Has he got a bigger head than Julian Lescott?
No, really?
It's close.
Yeah, it's a close run thing.
I think Kompany, he's still fairly priced. You're not paying for the goals that he scored. So I think it makes sense to stick with them until City shows that they're going to let up some goals.
Yeah. And it's amazing, isn't it? City have gone through just a couple of games in the season so far. Admittedly, one very impressive one against Chelsea. But now everyone seems to have completely rewritten history. Now Pellegrini's back to being a tactical genius again after being written off just a few months ago. And now suddenly City are favourites for the title.
Yeah, Torre and Kompany scored 2 goals each. They both struggled at points last season, and now he's a genius again. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Chelsea are like, 7-2, that sort of price, best price, to win the league.
Yeah.
Man City are 4-5, odds on to win the league.
It's mental.
Chelsea could. I was looking at it today because I was thinking about Chelsea. I think they could sign Pogba.
Yeah.
And they could sign John Stones for 40 million from they could spend 100 million plus easily in the next 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I like Mourinho over Pellegrini in a season. I like the manager better. I'd rather have Mourinho than Pellegrini, and
I totally agree.
I don't disagree there.
Yeah. I actually had a Chelsea fan visiting last weekend, and you can't say anything bad about Mourinho. It's like I've never met such a more passionate defence of their manager than Chelsea fans have towards Mourinho. They love him.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second
only to Alan Archibald at Partick Thistle.
Of course. He's on a shaky peg right now, but that's another podcast.
Come on, you can't say that. Not about Archie.
That's another podcast. Man United, what do we think about them this season? Big result midweek?
Yeah, well, I honestly don't even know what to think. They should finish top 4. Is that success for them? I don't even know if they're not going to win the league. They don't have enough balance in their team.
Yeah, totally agree. Sorry, we're distracting ourselves from the key task at hand here, which is we've got one of the world's greatest soccer DFSers, and we're talking amongst ourselves about Man United.
We're talking about a team who doesn't have a single player in the selected team.
Exactly. Okay.
So, Chris, talk us through Bournemouth. Why Bournemouth at the back?
Yeah, so Francis is another one who no goals, no clean sheets, in the top 15, does a little bit of everything, kind of like Kyle Walker does. Yeah. It's a little bit of a risk. Leicester scoring goals, but I like this price. I like that he's pretty safe. He's going to score me points. And if he gets in on something, then it's going to be a big week. It's got the chance to be a monster week. He had the assist last week that really kind of vaulted him up as far as points per game. He's safe, but with some upside, and he's going to be low owned because people like Leicester to score goals.
All right. Can't
It
really.
sounds so much smarter than our normal dissection of a player, doesn't it?
And also when it comes from an American accent rather than just two Scottish guys just not even enunciating clearly.
It's like being in a film.
I know, exactly. And across the midfield, let's not talk Eden Hazard, let's not talk Philip Coutinho. We know the reasons behind that. Wes Hoolahan and Sheridan Shaqiri, though, I like those picks a lot.
Yeah, just real quick on Hazard. I think, normally you you look at Hazard and he's going to be an autoplay in a lot of people's lineups, but he's been struggling. And at 15.5 million, you're going to look at the people around him. They're going to stand out. Torre, Silva, etc. I think he could be low owned.
Okay.
So I think that could be more of a differul than in other weeks.
I will take that bet any day. Eden Hazard low owned. Come on.
And Hooligan, I love him. I don't know why. I love this guy. He 10 fouls drawn, no fouls committed, 3 assists in the first 3 games. He's always on the ball. He takes set pieces and penalties. I think he's going to score a penalty this weekend. No one's going to own him. Get him in your squad. I love him this week.
Brilliant. He's your Gylfi. I say exactly the same about Sigurdsson every week.
Your Gylfi pleasure.
Hey!
Norwich has been playing well. I like him to get a goal this week.
I like it. Yep. I don't even know if the news made it to the States. It probably wouldn't have. But just a year ago, Hoolahan was seriously hated at Norwich, being booed by the fans and everything because he was trying to force a move through to Aston Villa.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Might be a bit of John Stones about him there.
Well, they're away to Southampton this Sunday lunchtime, aren't they? So Southampton are struggling
They're
so far this year.
to the mean pretty spectacularly, aren't they?
Yeah.
Sheridan Shaqiri, what a player! He's a Stoke.
Yeah.
What?
This is the toughest one for me because it meant I had to leave out Mahrez, and Shaqiri's priced a little bit more. Mahrez should be an auto play, to be honest with you, at 10.9 or whatever he's listed at right now. But I like Shaqiri. He got involved in a goal last week. I actually have a little bit of a soft spot for him because when I was playing Mondogoal's World Cup leagues, Shaqiri was racking up points for me and helped me win money before I started working here. So now that he's in the Premier League, I'm ready to load up on some Shaqiri, and I think again
familiarity bias,
priced a little higher.
Love it, David. You're starting to sound like me.
I threw that in for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, Chris, if you missed that, I was just saying that's familiarity bias.
Yeah, it's true. It's a bad trap to fall into.
Yeah, I definitely have it. And Shaqiri, in amongst playing for Stoke, also married to Gerard Piqué, so pretty impressive. Shaqiri.
Yeah, terrific.
Oh, come on.
No, I like it. I'm all about Rondon.
Now, where is this coming from?
I thought this would raise some eyebrows.
Yeah.
So I liked what I saw last week, and this is just the case of trying to be in on a guy before anyone else kind of gets wind and comes around on him.
Okay.
Super low owned, might be a week or two early, but I think as he gets settled in the squad, he's going to score some goals. You have to choose your West Brom players when there might be some games when they get a little bit more of the ball. There's not going to be a lot of them, right? But I think this week he could get some service, could get a goal, and if he does, at 5.6, it just vaults you right up the table.
It's interesting that you've gone for him. Well, actually, a point in 2 parts. First of all, you clearly didn't see his performance last night. Whoo! Howling. Oh my goodness. He was horrendous. But he was excellent at the weekend, I'll give you that. But also it's interesting that you've chosen him when West Brom are playing Stoke, who are one of the sides in the Premier League who seem most well suited for handling a guy like Rondon defensively.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, and I think that's also going to lead to low ownership, but I think it's a little early in the season to kind of say this team can handle that type of player. We haven't seen a lot yet. They haven't faced a lot of these, these types of strikers yet. It's a risk, undoubtedly a risk. There were a couple other guys. I think Juve was one in the price range where I could have jumped up to, but I think he's going to be a lot higher owned.
Yeah, Juve's had a very good season so far.
Yeah, he's been great. And if you wanted to put him in there, I wouldn't really argue it. It's a similar price. But I like this differential play. I'm taking a risk, and I think it's going to move me up the leaderboard.
I love it. I'm actually a massive fan of, no one's going to care if you make a min cash or if you just miss the money. You're shooting for the stars here. You're shooting for the big money up top. And in order to have a shot at that, you are going to need left field, low-owned, cheap guys who can have miracle leagues.
I've never been one to play for second place.
Love it, love it. And you've gone with Pedro up front as well at an incredibly appealing price point, might I point out. 6.2 mega.
Actually, my toughest inclusion was Pedro, because this goes against a lot of what I do. He's going to be super high owned.
Yeah,
he played well last week. He's the shiny new toy at Chelsea. Yeah. He's only 6.2. He's probably going to be over-owned. He had a great game. His fantasy game last week wasn't spectacular because Opta didn't credit him with an assist on the one goal. The goal he scored, it was an in-step shot right into somebody's shin guard, and it went in the back of the net. But he played well. He's going to get involved. I think Chelsea's going to find their form, and at 6.2, I don't want to be left in the dust if he bags a goal, because that's going to put me behind everyone, and I'm playing catch up the rest of the day.
And of course, having Pedro facilitates the inclusion of Aguero, because for 20 million you can get those two in your team.
Yeah, I mean, saving some money on Rondon and Pedro really allowed me to stack that midfield and add in Aguero as well up top. So I think it's gonna give me a good, well-rounded team here.
I love it. Okay, David, in 5 words or fewer, let's hear your appraisal of this team.
Interesting. Strong. Potentially very good.
Excellent. That was brilliant. That was 5 words. I just thought as soon as I said it, I should have probably warned you that I was going to spring that on you.
Yeah, that wasn't the easiest thing ever. And no, I actually think it's really interesting. I think more than just the player picks, I think what's interesting what Chris is actually saying from an insight perspective.
Yeah.
I looked at Pedro's price there and I'm thinking, you've got to pick him, right?
Yeah.
But I could see Chris having that sort of, quandary where, the ownership becomes such a factor.
Sure.
Some of our listeners might not truly understand what Chris means when he says about ownership. Can you give us a little bit more about ownership and the true effect of it?
Yeah, I think, if you're talking about a cash game or a smaller league, Pedro's an automatic play. You're going up against other people. You try and win elsewhere. You try and find a differential somewhere else. But if you're doing these large field leagues and 75-80% have Pedro, and there's so many different combinations of the remaining 10 players in those lineups that have Pedro, you have to be pretty much perfect the rest of the way out if he has a good game. So it might be better just to omit him. Hopefully he does poorly, and then you've gained so much ground on the rest of the field that it's a lot easier to move up the standings and differentiate yourself from the rest of those teams. It also keeps you from having a similar team as someone else. 2 of the things I like to do to keep from having a same team and splitting a pot: avoid those high-owned players and don't use all of my salary. I think a common thing that everyone does when they come into this is, I've got this salary or this budget, I've got to use all of my budget, and every last pound or dollar of it has to be used, and that's not true.
And do you think there's like a optimum amount of salary that you can leave on the board?
I would have given a range until the past couple weeks when I've seen what the Mondogoal perfect team has looked like.
Right.
I think the second week or I think game week 2, they might have only used 88 million of the 100 million. I would never leave that much on the table.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that points can come from anywhere, and you could even almost ignore the salaries of the players.
That is really interesting, actually. Yeah. So there's a sweet spot, like, if everyone's using their full 100, you feel that you're going to find a lot more players highly owned because everyone's sort of having the same
overlap. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A really good selection strategy insight there, and the sort of stuff that David and I are nowhere near good enough.
We're so far off it. And the formation, was there any, why that formation?
I'm a striker. I like to attack. You'll see any lineup can win. We've noticed that. I usually lean toward 3-5-2, 3-4-3. I like to attack. So that's just my own personal preference.
Can you give us a little bit of insight there over say last season? What would have been the formation that would produce the goods most often in a GPP?
We saw the 3-4-3 win the most, but it was also because it was the most preferred formation from users. So
Sure.
I think a lot of people seem to like to take those attacking players. They like to get Aguero and all the other top strikers. So it's more fun for them. So they're drawn to that formation. I think as we grow and we get more people that start to run some analytics and do a little more analysis, you might see a shift in what wins.
Very interesting.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yes, good stuff, gentlemen.
And in terms of, sorry, Christy, I keep interrupting my questions.
That's
In terms of what you talk about analytics, are there, is there like plans down the line from Mondogoal to provide, or are there currently some APIs, or are there plans to provide APIs to users that they can use to develop their own sort of almost models?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of things in the works, and I think you notice that we spend a lot of time improving, the usability of the site, the ability to enter more teams, manage teams, and I think as that becomes, optimized and running smoothly, and the scoreboards improve, we'll start to develop some more tools for people to build better teams or to kind of manipulate things on their end, and APIs are in that discussion, as well as just on-site tools. So we've got to add in injury notifications and things along those lines to keep you from selecting players who are going to miss out. We're going to improve that player card that Christy touched on earlier with the graph and the statistics, where you can get in-depth views of the players. So we're going to improve that to provide more statistics, more news about the players, and it should be a lot more hands-on for people to kind of dig in and get at the data.
Right. Terrific. Over to you, Christy. I'm sure you have more questions.
That's just great stuff. No, I really think we should wrap it up, gents, because we're going to go really, really long again. But Chris, if you will do us the honour of making a return appearance sort of in the next month or two, it would be an absolute pleasure to have you.
Anytime. It was great. Always love talking about the industry, and especially Mondogoal.
Fantastic. And that's Mondogoal, everyone, in case you haven't caught it. We plugged it enough.
Mondogoal.com. I think there'll be some links on the page that you might want to click, giving you access to a sign-up bonus and getting you started with Mondogoal.com.
Yeah, we've added, we've had the weekly £10,000 contest. We've added a £5,000 contest this week. We're growing quickly. Pot sizes are growing, so get involved.
Terrific.
Some big money to be made there, folks, so get on it. As always, it's an absolute pleasure. Chris Mazzone, firstly, thanks to you for gracing us with your presence.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Very
welcome. And David Copeland, as always, my partner in crime, an absolute delight.
And to you, Christy, so much delight.
Wonderful. Right, thanks everybody. Make sure to hit us up on Twitter, spread the podcast about a bit, and share the love. This is Christy Keenan for SuperLobby.com. Bye everyone.